Alright, so today I'm going to show you guys how to do a passenger side CV half shaft on a 2006 Nissan Altima with a 3.5 liter V6. These are pretty easy to do. It's pretty much the same on just about every car that uses this kind of setup, front wheel drive, you know. Go over the main things that you'll need. You'll need some moly grease, which I always dip this end after not this end, but this end, the spline that goes into the transmission. I always dip that into the grease just to kind of facilitate things a little bit better. Just kind of look it over and make sure that it's in good condition. Make sure that there's no leaks or anything like that. Make sure that it rotates as it should through this, and you should be good to go. Now, some of the main things you'll need, of course, some way to get your wheel off, some way to jack the car up and leave it jacked up, and then you'll need a big socket. This is 1.25 inches. I bought a whole set of these big sockets a couple of years ago, actually. You'll need that to tighten this guy down. Now with the wheel off, we can kind of get a better view of just exactly what we're going to have to do. And you're going to have to end up removing these two bolts right here, just so this can come down like that, and so you can pull your CV half shaft out. Now, in order to pull this bolt off, or this nut off, what you're going to have to do is get somebody to get in the car and press on the brakes so it compresses both sides, and then just go ahead and take it off. So now the next part, just go ahead and remove these two bolts right here, these two bolts back here, and pull the whole brake assembly off. Now with the top part of the caliper out of the way, you now need to go ahead and remove both your brake pads and the rest of the assembly. So just give the end of your socket wrench a few whacks with a hammer and it'll come right out. So now with the entire assembly out and off the car and hung up to the side, sometimes it is worth noting that when you take your rotor off, you might need to tap it. And I don't mean hit it, I mean tap it with a hammer, or better yet with a rubber mallet, to kind of just shake it off. But luckily, we're okay with this one. I didn't need to tap it at all. Let's go ahead and put that out of the way. Just got to remove the cotter key that goes through this bolt and nut and just start rotating it off. So now you just got to remove these two bolts right here, and this whole thing is going to swing down into the side. Now, one good thing about this, I already undid the 3 bolts that go around the mount right there. You don't need a pickle fork to remove the shaft from the transmission, so that's good. Now you are going to have to use a little bit of muscle to pull it out after you get them 3 bolts out, which are sitting right here. And after you do that, it just comes right out. So there's the old one. So now with the old one out, go ahead and measure it up. Make sure you got the right new part to go back on. What is interesting though is the new one does not have this bit on this one. I don't think that's a problem, because this is an original Nissan part, but this one isn't. This one's just a reman. So if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Alright, so the next part, I'm not going to show this on camera just because it's, you know, a two-hand job, but I'm going to dab the spline here into the grease, your moly grease, and then I'm going to go ahead and stick it into the transmission. I'm not going to get that on video either. It's pretty self-explanatory. Alright, so now, like I said, I did go ahead and put it all back in. It really is a two-hand job, so you can't really hold a camera at the same time. I put it in, threaded the end over here, and in order to get it all the way through this way, you're just going to have to tighten it down a little bit, and that'll pull it through. Now, these 3 bolts that are holding I'm going to call it the mount in, those are all in and they're cinched down. So it's not going to go anywhere from there. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue tightening this down. I'm going to get the socket and put it on it. And then all this other stuff can just go back on. So now with everything back in place, I put these 2 bolts back in. Go ahead and put your tie rod end back on, your ball joint through, and then take your castellated nut, which is right here, and go ahead and start threading it back on, and then throw your cotter key through it. You should be good to go. And so now just a quick rehash. Everything is back together. I went ahead and threw the old cotter key through. It's not that big of a deal. I don't have one as thick as this one should be. They were just kind of like almost falling through, so I just took the old one because I didn't dick it up too bad, stuck it back through, cinched that down, have my buddy hold on the brakes, and then put the tie rod back on. Everything's bolted down and seated correctly. So now I'm just going to put the wheel